Oi, fala aí pessoal, bom dia. Você está escutando o Inglês no Rádio. I am your host, Foster Hodge. This is your daily dose of English. Hey, what's up guys? It's Foster from Inglês no Rádio. Today I'm here with Ilya Brotzky, the founder, tech professionals to employers in Canada, and they're doing some really cool stuff. So welcome, Ilya. How are you, man?
Hey, Foster. I'm doing really, really well. Thanks so much for having me. And hi, everyone who's listening. I appreciate your time, and hopefully you get some value out of our conversation.
I'm sure they will. So, Ilya, first of all, I know that you're the founder and CEO of VanHack. Very cool company. We'll talk about it. But if you could just start telling everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about your connections with Brazil, because I know you spent a good bit of time there.
Yeah, definitely. So it all started on a cold winter day in upstate New York. And when I was talking to a friend about what I was going to do for my spring break, he was sharing with me this magical place called Florianopolis that I have to visit. And unfortunately, I couldn't go there because they didn't have a volunteer program there. I had a scholarship to volunteer and travel. And so I ended up going to Rio and spending a week in Mangueira, the favela there in Rio, doing some volunteer work at a community center, basically cleaning, painting, gardening, helping reshape the community center. And that was a really great experience. First time being in Brazil, kind of just getting exposed to the culture. And actually during that week, I received an email from ISEC, which is an amazing organization that helps students get international jobs, that was talking about a job for Canadians in Brazil. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it was at a company I'd never heard of called Vail. Well, at least I thought it was called Vail. And then I was telling a friend about it. And he's like, oh, you mean Valley, that's how you pronounce it. And so long story short, I ended up getting that job out of university. My first position was working as a trainee at Valley, where I was basically helping kind of the management in Brazil and the management in Canada get along and talk to each other because, long story short, there were some issues between the cultures and a strike, and then, mining is a little bit more sensitive with workers' rights and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was my first position, and that's kind of how I got exposed to Brazil. A year and a half later, I ended up leaving Valley to go work as a volunteer at a nonprofit called Mobile Metrics, where we helped youth from favelas get jobs and go to door and do surveys. And then at the same time, we helped companies gather more data about this kind of hidden class of people. And that was really rewarding and great experience. And then from there, I started working in different startups in the ed tech space and kind of started my journey as an entrepreneur in Brazil. That's how it all began.
Awesome. So that's a pretty intense, wide-ranging introduction to Brazil, starting in Rio and Mangueira, and then working for one of the largest mining companies in the world. Yeah, awesome. And how long did you end up staying in Brazil in total?
So I stayed in Brazil for about 3 and a few months, but it was over a 4-year span. So from June, July of 2010 till July of 2014. And then I came back home to Vancouver.
Cool. And you're originally from Vancouver, right?
No, I'm originally from Russia, from Siberia. I moved to Vancouver when I was 5.
Oh, wow. And I imagine when you were in Brazil, you had the chance to learn some Portuguese. Everything go well with the language?
Yeah, for me, Portuguese was the first challenge I had to conquer in Brazil. I was a little bit surprised that there were so few people speaking English in Vitória, where I was living. And so I basically was needing to learn Portuguese to do my job. Yeah. I was sitting in meetings where everything was in Portuguese. There was a couple of people who spoke English, but the working language is Portuguese, of course. That's the national language. And so I had to kind of me virar, like figure things out.
Exactly.
In the first 3 months were pretty challenging, where I really didn't know anything, and I felt like I was a little baby who needed help to go eat and do laundry or whatever. But eventually I got the hang of it. I had taken French immersion and a few Spanish classes in high school, and that helped me understand kind of the grammar and structure of Romantic languages. And I had this really great group of friends from the other trainees in Valley who were Brazilians who spoke fluent English, and were able to be kind of my teachers. And so, yeah, I spoke Portuguese with as many people as possible, as much as possible. One thing that I definitely was shy. And that's big. My biggest advice to anyone who's learning English or any language is just not to be shy about it. And so I would make many mistakes, but thankfully people would help me and were very gracious in correcting me. And eventually, bit by bit, I started understanding things and was able to have basic conversations. And then, it kind of started growing faster and faster. And eventually, I understood more than I didn't understand. And that's really when things started to take off.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I think that's a great point about just really not being shy, because naturally I'm a pretty introverted person and a lot of my students are very timid. But when you are learning a new language, you kind of just got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's the easiest way to start learning fast. And that's great advice.
Definitely.
So, Ilya, you started, I guess your story kind of begins with you trying to find a way to work or volunteer in Brazil. And now you're pretty much doing the opposite. So you're helping Brazilians work and move to Canada. So can you tell me just a little bit about VanHack and what you guys do there?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was in Brazil, I had a course that I created called Brazil Career Blueprint. I had seen someone create a course called China Career Blueprint, and I thought it was pretty cool. There were some of my friends from Canada and the US and Europe were asking me about Brazil as a place to work. Just after the financial crisis, the economy wasn't so good in Canada, the US, and Europe. And the economy was really booming in Brazil, and it was seen as a very attractive place to go. So I created this course. I had some modest success. I wouldn't say it was a success overall. It was okay. What I learned from that was when I told all my Brazilian friends, they would say, you know what, you're doing this the wrong way. You're doing this the opposite way. You should be helping Brazilians move to Canada, or now I guess with VanHack we help Brazilians move anywhere, or now anyone can move anywhere kind of thing, specifically for developers and tech talent. But anyways, that was the origin of the idea. I had some Brazilian roommates, one Brazilian roommate in particular who was a software engineer. And so him and I would talk kind of, what is it that's holding them back? And what I realized that the biggest challenge that people had, especially Brazilians, was technical English. So English for software engineers, talking about how to do job interviews, talking about how to, pronounce different technical terms. And that was something that I felt like I could help with. And at the same time, there was a lot of companies here in Canada. I'd come back to Canada in 2014 and started going to all these meetups and events and trying to find a job for myself. And everyone kept asking me if I was a software engineer. And when I said I wasn't, they would kind of just stop talking to me because they really wanted to hire just software engineers. There was even billboards in the city that said, if you can read, like with JavaScript code, and said, if you can read this, call this number or apply for the job, like email your resume to this email.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a huge problem. And not just in Vancouver and in many cities. The name VanHack comes from the fact that I thought it would be just for Vancouver, but now we've evolved and we have the jobs in, I believe it's 5 or 6 countries around the world, and growing that. And we have hundreds of people who helped get hired in other countries, not just Canada. Germany, the Netherlands are 2 other bigger markets, but all other countries in Europe, like Ireland and Portugal, are also pretty strong. And other cities and locations like maybe the United States and Australia are on the horizon. More than anything, what we do at VanHack is we empower tech talent with the soft skills they need to get international jobs. Our laser focus is relocating technical talent. We help developers, designers, digital marketers, people who work in tech get the skills they need to be able to transition there and kind of find a new job in a new city. And then we guide them along the way. And then also we give companies access to a world of tech talent that they didn't wanted to relocate to their city.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can totally, just from my firsthand experience, at least 80% of our students work in tech. And they all have the same problem, that they have all the hard skills they need. They're extremely talented developers and engineers and designers, but the soft skills and the linguistic capacity is the thing that's really holding them back. So I think you guys are hit the nail on the head with what the market needs. It's really cool, man.
So yeah, the original idea for VanHack was to actually help people learn how to code. in Canada or in Vancouver. And quickly I realized that the people who were getting in touch with me were people who already knew how to code, but actually wanted to immigrate. And so that just came from having tons of conversations with developers and learning what they need. So yeah, that's really kind of the origin of everything.
That's great, man. That's awesome. So I imagine that's a really complicated process. Our students always have questions about like tips on immigrating to the US or Canada or Europe. And it's just such a complicated situation that normally I don't know where to begin. So can you give me just like a quick 360 overhead view of if a developer comes to you, he's looking for a job, how that process goes?
So then let's assume your English is a strong level, a good enough level to get hired. You become then what's known as a verified VanHacker, and now you're able to apply for jobs and get interviews. So we would screen your resume, pair you up with the positions that we think are best, and also we'll be sending you job alerts and things like that as well. And then once you do have a job interview booked, we would schedule a mock interview to prepare you and give you as much content information about the company as possible, so then you are able to to have success. And thankfully, today we've helped almost 500 people get hired, and our goal is to double that by the end of the year.
That's awesome. So Ilya, do you have any, I guess I have two questions just to finish up. I think the fact that a lot of my students ask me about getting work in the US, and a lot of times my recommendation right now is you should probably look into Canada, just because I think there are more opportunities right now and maybe the process is a little bit easier. Do you have any reasons why Brazilians should be looking into the Canadian market as a good option?
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest reason is that we have a new streamlined visa for tech talent. So if you are a software engineer, you work with tech, we have a special visa called the Global Talent Stream that came out last June. Very, very exciting. It's a specific visa, basically almost automatic approval if you have a job offer. So many companies are starting to realize this and are starting to become more open to hiring from abroad, just because there is a huge lack of tech talent here. So with this new visa, you're able to get a work permit in 20 business days or 1 month. And we've seen people be able to move in a month and a half, 2 months after the whole process is complete.
Wow.
We've helped 400 people go through the process. It's very straightforward. If you're looking for an international job and you're kind of open to different cities, we just let us know. We have a feature where you can tell us the cities you want to go to. We send you more for those cities, and yeah, we're help no matter where it is you want to relocate to.
Awesome. So I guess my last question would just be, do you have any advice or recommendations for, imagine a lot of our listeners are kind of in this situation where they're good developers, but maybe not quite ready to move to Canada in the next couple of months. You have things that they could, just common, mistakes or shortcomings that people could start improving on immediately?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that people think it's going to be an overnight process, or people think it's going to be fast. So I think what you said about maybe the next couple of months, or maybe it's even a year, you have to realize that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Things take time. You're making a huge change, and you have to be patient with it. Another thing I would say is, it also is not something that will happen if you don't do anything. So you really have to create a plan and dedicate and stick to it. Whether that's, English classes through us or through someone else, you probably have some great courses too. Whether that's, maybe going to and watching videos on YouTube of different modern technologies. So if you are working with things like React.js or working with different kind of like Java 8, for example, or more modern stacks of technology is something I would recommend, and what's in demand here in Canada and in other cities, other countries. So I would kind of maybe re-up and refresh your tech skills if that needs to happen. And then the last thing I would say is just be confident that eventually this will happen. It's an emotional journey, and I saw a lot of people kind of like applying to a few jobs, not hearing back, being discouraged, thinking it's not for them and thinking it's impossible. We had one of our members who's a designer, living in Dublin, he applied for 1,000 jobs.
Wow.
1,000 jobs. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Super passionate, and it really shows that maybe that's not the best thing to do is apply to 1,000 jobs, but maybe you should be a little more targeted with it. But the point is that you should not give up. And for him, his English, he would be the first to admit it, was not very good, and he had to overcome that. And his tech skills really showed. So he had a portfolio, he had a good LinkedIn profile, kind of like all your digital assets or digital representations of yourself should be as updated and as good as possible, because that's really what companies are going to see. They're not going to be able to meet you in person, but they will be able to like read your blog or read your LinkedIn articles that you post. So you should write a blog, you should write LinkedIn articles, you should be creating content. These kind of things are really important. And if you are able to represent yourself well digitally and also be able to do good job interviews online, you should be good and you should be fine. But just recognize that it takes some time, but it definitely is possible. Like we have actually a list of all the hires that we've at VanHack, and we keep updating that list. And so you can see that it's real. We have a YouTube channel that has dozens of success case videos, a lot of free content that you can watch. We also have a course on our website, a free course about how to relocate, get ready to get abroad. So we create a lot of free content if you want to check that out. And for us, it's really about sharing value with people and kind of helping them. If it's through VanHack, if it's on your own, we just want to help you get your goal, reach your goals.
That's great, man. Yeah, I totally agree that immigrating anywhere or learning a new language, these are really long, emotional journeys. It's a roller coaster ride. So I think the idea of just not giving up is really, really important. Thanks a lot. Or where can we find you online? Just vanhack.com? Is that the best place?
Check out vanhack.com, click the join now button in the top right corner and fill out a create a profile. It's free. You'll be getting a lot of emails and content from us. We also have a Slack group that you can join once you've joined the platform, where you can chat with our team and hang out with us. We're always available to respond to you. One thing that we really like to do is be close to our members. We look at VanHack as a community first more than anything else. So join the community, learn, share, and get hired.
That sounds great. So we'll link up to all that in the show notes. And if you guys have any questions or anything, we will make sure that you get in touch with the guys at VanHack. They're doing really impressive stuff. Really, really good for anyone working in tech or thinking about immigrating abroad. Cool. Ilya, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time, and I hope to have you back on the show again soon.
No, likewise. Thank you so much, Foster, for reaching out, and all the best. I hope we meet in person one day, and keep doing what you're doing. It's really great.
Thanks, man. Valeu. Ciao.